started in just a minute. Let me just firstly say that I'm here in Durham, North Carolina for the first time in 13 years. I'll be speaking tonight at the Hayti Heritage Center, 804 Old Fayetteville Road. Doors open up at 4 this evening. Program will be from 6 to 9, followed by a book signing of my book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, the Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. This will be the first time that Psychoacademic Holocaust has actually been to Durham. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing everybody tonight, this evening. Just to let you know, we are just about at, I think, under 100 tickets left. So we have less than 100 tickets left. Looks like it's going to be another sold out event. So if you plan on coming through tonight, please try to get your tickets off of Eventbrite as soon as you can. princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to go right to the phone lines. Good morning to everyone. And is there a question to get us started today? Make sure you state your city before you state your question. Do we have a question to get started?
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Umar. This is Tiffany Keener from Detroit, Michigan.
Good morning, Tiffany. How are you, sister?
I'm doing great. I've been up all night trying to research, get some information. I know you'll be here this week at the school. My son has an IEP. He had a stroke when he was born, so they diagnosed him with cerebral palsy. He doesn't take any medication. We turned down all the medication because he's fine, except for he only uses his left hand to do everything. No right hand movement, so they put him in special education in school, but he's not learning anything. I work from home during the day, so I'm able to teach him when I can, how to read, but him being 11, a black male, his reading is not where it should be. His teacher is a black male this year. The kids irritate him so that he puts his head down, and he gets on his phone during the class. I've complained to the principal. And I heard you say when you had spoke here last month that if your child, gets the IEP and he's been in school for a couple of years and you see they're not learning anything, they may qualify to go to a private school. And that sparked my fire, and I'm just trying to see what can I do, what paperwork, where do I start? He's in 5th grade, and he's been going there since kindergarten. He went from all A's to now we're at all B's.
Okay. So he's in the 5th grade. He's been there since kindergarten. Now you said he went from straight A's to all B's?
Yep, it's just like you said. When he first started, he was eager to go, good grades, happy to go to school. His school became a charter school where all of the black teachers were fired and they brought in all these young white teachers. Nice ones, came from Michigan State or whatever, but they didn't teach him anything. I noticed in 3rd grade, he didn't like going to school. This is when he had the young white teacher. He didn't like school anymore. My father said it's probably something that they're teaching him that's losing his interest. So I started sitting in the class thinking like that. Then they started harassing me because I didn't get his shot. Because you taught me that, don't get him those free shots, so I didn't get the shot. So I was already under the microscope at the school as being the parent that didn't want to go along with the shot. And now that he's in the 5th grade at the same school, they brought in new teachers this year, and it's even worse. Okay. So I'm teaching them as much as I can, but as you said, I know they get $7,000 a month for him to go there. He's been going there for years. And, if he can't read, I don't know what to do as far as teaching him myself from home. Right. Because they're not teaching him anything.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
I want him to be around you as much as I can afford. But until I can get him with you for the summer, I would love when you come to Detroit. Please tell me.
Okay, let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, you said he's in the 5th grade. He been there since kindergarten. Now, did I hear you correctly when you said his grades went from A to B as in boy, or A as in D as in destiny? His grades went from A to B?
A went from A as in apple to D as in dog. I mean, straight down.
Now,
as he went up, the grades went down.
Okay. Now, my next question. Okay, He's in the fifth grade, but what grade is he operating on in terms of math and reading? And I'm asking you that because we need to establish that no progress has been made, or very little progress has been made. Now, even though he's failing, not failing, excuse me, even though his grades has dropped, have they dropped because of a lack of mastery of him? Have they dropped because he is not on grade level, or have they dropped for other reasons? Do we know what grade he's operating on instructionally? Instructionally
Yes,
speaking.
his last IEP, I wish I had it in front of me, but he's reading at a second grade level. The sight words that they had him doing, I wrote him out some like a simple word like this. He will look at the word this, and they have him sounding out each letter. Where I told the teacher, well, how about put two letters together? Let's work with just sounding out a whole word. And teacher told me he had the degree, and he's a black man. Told me he had a degree and he went to school, and this is the best way to do it. And now it is January, and my son reading with the words that he knows, I can pretty much say is what me and my family.
Okay, let me jump in again. Okay, so he's in the fifth grade, reading on the second grade level, so he's 3 grades behind. He went into special ed kindergarten. What is his special education classification? Now, I know you mentioned he had the stroke, but they have him in special ed under what category, though? Is he under special ed for other health impairment? Is it traumatic brain injury? Is it orthopedic impairment? Is it learning disability? What is his classification?
I believe because of his physical, because he had the stroke and it affected the whole right side of his body, he doesn't use his right hand, so he's left-handed. But when it came to the brain injury, because of the stroke, they said he may have lost a couple of seconds of oxygen while I was pregnant. I was in labor for 3 days. That's a whole other story for you, but they couldn't pinpoint the stroke. So he had some brain damage. They diagnosed him with mild cerebral palsy, but on his IEP, I believe it's just for physical. We had these evaluations, just like you said, where they brought in people from Lansing. I'm the only black person in the room where they bring in all these people and talking to me about his progress and what they're going to do to help, but it never happened.
Okay. Now, you said the IEP for physical. Physical is not a classification, though. I got to know exactly what his classification is.
Yeah. I'm going to try to find the IEP.
It should. Do you have your evaluation report? Though, if you went in special ed in kindergarten, and you got to get reevaluated, at least.
He gets evaluated all the time. It's just so amazing talking to you that I was just up all night. I didn't even have it in front of me, but I'm running up. Hear me. It was probably mental, physical.
Right. Listen to me. He went in kindergarten. He get reevaluated about every 3 years. So there was a kindergarten eval. There was a third grade eval at least. So your son should have 2, if maybe 3 evaluations. You need to keep those. Parents, all of you need to keep track of the evaluation, the IEPs. You should have a folder or a binder. You probably need a binder because a folder isn't going to be large enough to keep all the IEPs. You should have that stuff at finger's reach. And for me, the evaluation is even more important than the IEP because the evaluation establishes the need for an IEP. The psychological evaluation establishes the need for the IEP. So if you have the IEP, that will show the program. Remember, the IEP team has 3 responsibilities. The IEP team creates the program that the child will learn while in special ed in the disabled area. So the IEP is the curricular program for the disabled area. So if your child, has a autistic IEP, then the IEP will include the goals, the objectives, and the strategies that the special ed teacher will be working with your child on while they're in special ed as it relates to autism, or as it relates to the reading disability, as it relates to emotional disturbance, as it relates to intellectual disability, as it relates to speech and language impairment. If a child has a speech and language impairment, for example, the IEP will talk about what the speech pathologist will be doing when your child is with them. So that's the program. But see, the evaluation tells me why and how why and how the evaluating school psychologist determined that your child needed special education. So for me, the eval is the foundation that the IEP is built on. So, and we got to know our children's classifications. We should know those. We have to know them. If the child is in special ed, we have to know why. So we got to know those classifications. There's 13. There's the learning disability, emotional disturbance, intellectual disability, which is formerly mental retardation, autism, deafness, traumatic brain injury, blindness, orthopedic impairment, multiple disability, developmental delay, other health impairment for conditions like ADHD, children who are both deaf and blind. There's 13 of them, and you got to know which one your child has. We have to always know the disability that they were given in order to qualify for special ed.
Okay. Well, I'm holding a progress report. I believe this isn't the IEP, but this has the goal, the objective, and it
does it state the disability category? I need the disability category.
No.
Okay. So what if you don't have it, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to write a letter to your child's principal requesting a complete copy of his academic record. You want a complete copy. This is Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm writing this letter for my daughter, Anissa Johnson. She's a 9th grader at such and such school. I'm requesting a complete copy of her academic, testing, behavioral, special education record. Please include all data that is relevant for my child in that. This is my right as a parent under the Federal Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. Please let me know when my copy will be available for me to pick it up. How long will it take? And let me know if there's a cost associated with my request. They can charge you for the copies. It's normally between $20 and $50, depending on how thick your child's record is. But because you don't have the IEPs and because you don't have the psychological evaluation, you have to request that. You got to have that. Especially for your son, since he has unique special needs, you really got to keep your paperwork together. Because what happens is when we go to fight to get that private school or get a change in placement, get anything, comp ed, not only is your son potentially eligible for an approved private school because they failed to educate him, he may also be entitled to compensatory education, which basically says that if a school miseducated a special ed child, if the child did not benefit from the special ed service that was being provided, then the school not only owes you the approved private school, they also may owe you compensatory education. Compensatory education means that if your son was in special ed for 5 years and he only moved 2 grades, then maybe they owe your child an additional 3 years of comp ed because he was in special ed all this time. They got paid for it, but he did not benefit from it. Let me say it again. If your child was in special ed, the school is getting paid for that child. If he's not benefiting from the service that the school is being paid to provide, the school still owes you that service. So what happens is you demand comp ed for 3 years because my child hasn't been learning anything or benefiting from special ed in almost 3 years. So you owe me 3 years of special ed support. And what happens is you and the school district decide on a dollar amount or an amount of hours. You decide on a dollar amount or the amount of hours of comp ed that your child is entitled to. That money goes into an escrow account, and then you can bill the school district for services that you go and solicit on behalf of your son. So whether that's tutoring, counseling, summer school, therapy, you can bill it until that money is spent up. But I'm gonna need to see those evals. So you're gonna have to put in that request for a complete copy of your son's work.
I'm gonna go in the morning. What? I know you'll be here. I think Thursday in Detroit. Are you gonna be at a school or at a center?
Yeah, I won't be speaking. I'm coming to Detroit to look at some of the school buildings that are available there, to see if we want to purchase one for the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. So I won't be speaking, but I will be in Detroit for those 2 days, that Thursday and Friday.
Okay, so get all of my recent IEPs together.
Everything. And the psych evals, the psychological evaluations. You need that first one. You need that second one. And if there was a third one, you need the third one. Also, the medical. The medical evals that were done outside of school that dealt with, the stroke and all that. What we probably will have to do is we probably have to do a private consultation because your case is kind of in depth. So I'll probably have you get all that paperwork together and either make a copy and FedEx or UPS or post office it to me. So I'll have it and then we can go over it by phone and review everything to come up with a working plan for your case. Now, for the consultations, the private ones, I charge y'all $50, but it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's just one time. And we may need to do it that way, so that way we can spend all the time we need to go through your son's situation. Okay, so once you have all the paperwork,
what should I tell his doctor that I need in order so I know that I got everything I need?
Well, you tell your doctor that you need a complete copy of his medical record. Same thing you do in the school, you do with the medical. You need a complete copy of his medical record. Please make sure y'all do not leave out any evaluations. You need all medical evaluation reports. You need all educational and psychological evaluation reports. I need to see the evals, all of them, the medical, the psychological, everything.
Okay. It's been an honor speaking with you. This is amazing. I knew I didn't stay up all night for nothing.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have my cell number?
215-989-9858.
Right. So once you have the paperwork, text me on that number, and we're gonna make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna make now. If, and I doubt it, if you can do it that fast. They don't normally act that fast. But if you're able to get the copy of your son's medical and school records before or by Thursday or Friday, let me know. There's a chance I can meet with you while I'm in Detroit.
Okay, that's what I'm hoping.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to work on it from now until then, so that I can hand it to you in your hand.
Got you.
And your fee, I hope to have. Is there a payment plan, or are you saying just pay it?
Yeah, it's just $50, and you could do it by PayPal or Square, whatever works best for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, love. All right. Okay, yes, before we go to the next question, just to let parents know, yes, you can get a private one-on-one consultation with Dr. Umar Johnson. Yes, my colleagues charge $100, $200, $300 an hour. I only charge $50 because I'm not trying to get rich off our people. I'm just trying to help our people. So if you need a one-on-one consultation for your child or yourself, I do life coaching consultations as well. So if you got issues, that you would like to discuss within your own life, and of course everything stays confidential, it's $50, and you can pay that by PayPal, paypal.me /Umar the psychologist, paypal.me /Umar the psychologist, or you can do it by Square, And of course, you know, with Square, your Square ID is $ your name. So my Square ID is $ Dr. Umar Johnson. Whenever you pay a consultation, whenever you pay for a $50 consultation, it's important that you let me know you paid. Parents will pay and they don't tell me they paid. Okay. If you don't tell me, it's not going to happen. So after you pay, you need to screenshot the receipt. After you pay, you need to email me the receipt or you need to text me the receipt and say, Doc, I just paid for a consultation. Here's my receipt. And then I will say, when are you available? So you have to let me know when you pay. But yes, it's just $50. Okay, so that's the way that works. Let's go back to the phone lines. Is there another question on the call this morning?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Where are you calling from? Where are you calling from, sister?
I'm calling from Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania, which is about 10 minutes from Philadelphia.
Yes, ma'am. I'm familiar with Sharon Hill. A good friend of mine from college lived in Sharon Hill. But go right ahead with your question.
Okay. I have 4 sons, all of which have been in special ed. I'm concerned about the youngest. That's my main concern, his situation. But my oldest son, he had lead poison as a child. Around 2, he got lead poison. So when I put him in school, it was a Philadelphia public school. They said, oh, well, he needed to be left back. So kindergarten, they left him back. Then he went in the 1st grade, and then I said, no, something's not right. So I took him out. And then for 2nd grade, I tried to homeschool him myself, and then that didn't work. So for 3rd grade, I put him into a Catholic school, and then they were trying to work with him, and then they finally said, well, he needs to be evaluated. So I said, I didn't know, well, I didn't even know what it was for. So an outside agency came in, and they evaluated him, and they said, ma'am, your son has an IQ of 64. But they never labeled him as mentally retarded. So he said, we cannot accommodate him in these kind of schools. He has to go to public school. So I moved up here in the 4th grade. He went into public school, and he's been in special ed ever since. He's now in the 10th grade. So when he transitioned from 8th grade to high school, he said, Mom, they do it differently when you get into high school. They don't pull you out of class for special ed. You get put in a special ed class, and you stay in there with other kids who have like real disabilities. And he said, we're not learning anything. They just sit all day. And I said, well, so I called the head of the special ed from the school district, and he said, oh, well, once you get to high school, yeah, we don't pull them out anymore for special ed. They just have to stay in special ed. I said, well, he's not comfortable with that. He doesn't want to do that. And she said, well, it's not you can do because your son, he has a severe case. He can't be taken out of special ed. So that's what they was telling me all his 9th grade year. So then finally 10th grade year came around. And then I had listened to a few of your lectures, and I said, okay, well, maybe this might pertain to him. So I called an IEP meeting for when he was in 10th grade, and I said, no, you cannot keep him in a class with all these other types of children who have these real disabilities. He said, you don't even give him any real work, so you don't know what he can or can't do. I'm telling you, you need to put him in regular classes. And also, I want to know, is he going to get a high school diploma when he graduates? So they told me, yes, right now, the state of Pennsylvania, they keep changing the laws of it, so we don't really know. But as of right now, yes, he can still get a high school diploma. So they put him in regular classes, but they still kept the IEP in place. But since September, all of these things have transpired, and his stepfather was removed from his home, and then he had to go to court for all this stuff, and his grades have dropped he has F, and I'm concerned because he's missed so many days from going back and forth to court. But that's just his. Each four of my sons have their own unique, different problem that I'm trying to address. So that's his kid right now. So right now he has F, and I don't know if he's going to be able to bring these grades up and get back on track because of what happened. So in the meantime, I have a 12-year-old who's about to be 13. He's in the 7th grade, and I have a 11-year-old. He's in the 6th grade. They were also on special ed for at least 4 years, but they had no business being in special ed. There was nothing wrong with them. They just were kind of lazy and didn't want to really do the work. So I took them off of special ed, and their grades went from A's and B's, now it's D's and F's.
Okay.
And I've been trying to fill in the blanks that they missed because they never caught up being in special ed. It just got worse.
Okay, let me jump in. Let me jump in with some questions. Okay, the son that we're talking about, what grade is he in right now?
No, the one who's in high school, or?
Yes, let's deal with one at a time. Who we dealing with now? Are we dealing with the high schooler?
Well, no. That's what I talked about first, but yeah, he's 16 going on 17.
Okay, so he's 16 going in 17. What grade is he in?
He's in the 10th grade.
He's in the 10th grade. He's a special ed student?
Yes.
He's been in special ed since what grade?
4th grade.
Okay, and what is he in special ed for? What is his disability classification?
Learning disability. That's what they said.
Okay, learning disability in what area? There's 8. There's basic reading skill, there's reading fluency, there's reading comprehension, there's math calculations, there's math reasoning, there's oral expression, there's written expression, there's listening comprehension. A learning disability in what area?
They said it was all of them. Remember,
A learning disability in all of them?
64 when they tested him.
Okay, but see, a 64 IQ, listen to me. A 64 IQ does not tell us what learning disability a child has. A 64 IQ only suggests that there might be a mild intellectual disability. But because your son is a black boy with a 65 IQ basically tells me that he probably scored very low on the verbal ability scale of the IQ, which means he did not understand the words that white people use that he was being asked to respond to. So 64 is only 6 points below 70. 70 is borderline. Your son scored 6 points below borderline. So that means the reason why they didn't diagnose him as intellectually deficient is because they probably looked at his IQ profile and said, even though he scored a 64, he clearly is not a retarded kid, because when you look at his processing speed scale or his fluid reasoning scale or his working memory scale, he probably scored within the normal range. It was probably only the verbal scale where he scored low. But getting back to my point, the 64 IQ score does not tell us anything about a learning disability. It's an intelligence score, not an achievement score. So I think, again, as with the previous caller, you got to find out exactly what the disability areas are. I doubt that he was diagnosed as learning disabled in all 8 areas. That's extremely rare to be classified with a learning disability in all 8 areas. So we got to find out what the specific areas are. However, I guess we can assume that he's at least in special ed for math and reading. Is that correct?
Yes, but right now, being that he's in high school, he's not even taking a math class right now. He'll take it another semester. So
right. I ain't dealing with, stay with me. I ain't dealing with the classes he taking. I want to deal with the special ed service. So, well, let me ask you this. 15 going on 16, and he's in what grade? 10th?
Yeah.
Okay. Is he on grade level academically?
No.
How far behind is he? You would say your son is instructionally functioning on what grade levels?
Maybe 8th grade, maybe.
Okay, well, 8th grade is only 2 grades behind. If your son is in 10th grade and he's functioning on the 8th grade level, I'm not extremely concerned. If it's only 8th, I'm not extremely concerned because you can close a skills gap in as little as 2 to 4 weeks. You can close a skills gap in as little as 2 to 4 weeks. So if he's only 2 grades behind, that's good information for me. Now, what grade was he put in special ed? During what grade was he
4th
placed?
grade.
Okay, 4th grade. So he's been in for 6 years. Okay. And so your main issue with him is what at this point?
That he has F's, and I'm concerned if he's going to be able to bring those up.
Okay, why does he
and
have the
also
F's? Why does he have the F's?
Because an incident happened earlier, right at the beginning of the school year, and his stepdad, he got falsely accused of doing something, and he got locked up. And in the meantime,
Okay, your son got locked. You said stepdad. Wait a minute. Your son got.
stepdad got locked up.
Okay, what that got to do with the son? Go ahead.
It has a lot to do with the whole situation. But some people attacked him for the reasons that they accused his stepdad of doing whatever.
Okay.
I don't want to get into details.
I understand.
He had to go back and forth to court to testify against people. So he missed so many days. The school, they are excusing the days, but they're not letting him make up any of the work. So he now has F's because of the
Okay.
many days. So going back and forth to court.
Okay. How many days did he miss? Roughly.
Maybe 20.
He missed 20 days. That's a month worth of school. Okay. Wow. I think, okay, you're going to have to advocate for your son from the position of him being a special ed student. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to call an IEP meeting and request that your son be allowed to make up the missed work. Because he's a 10th grader, he can't afford to. He may, and you may have to explore other options with the IEP team that will allow your son to get back on, to make up that work so he does not fail. He may have to do summer school. He may have to do extended school service, summer school or extended school service. The other thing you could do too, now you said he's only 2 grades behind level, but you could even argue that your son has not been getting the quality of special ed help that he deserves. You could argue that your son has not been getting the quality of special ed help that he deserves. And as a result, the school district owes your son an approved private school placement. Or you could argue that they owe your son compensatory ed because he hasn't been making a lot of progress. So you could kind of come back and say, okay, y'all don't want to let him make up his work? Fine. But y'all owe me comp ed because he hasn't been learning much anyway. Or y'all owe me a private school because he haven't been making much progress anyway. So you could come back at him that way. Or you could come from the perspective that I want my son to get extended school year service or summer school or extra help. You may also need to write a letter to the superintendent of the school district requesting that he get involved on this situation and demand that the school allow your son to make up the missed time due to extenuating circumstances that were beyond his control, because those circumstances were unique. And I do feel that the school district should work with you. The other thing you could do is you could take the school district to due process. You could take the school district to due process and force the state to allow your son to make up the missed work. So you got a couple options. You can do the IEP team. You could do the superintendent. You could do due process. You could also file for comp ed or an approved private school placement. So you got a couple ways you could go. If it were me, I would start with the IEP team at the school, but it sounds like they've already told you no. So if that's the case, my next step would be a letter to the superintendent to see if the superintendent will get involved in this situation on your son's behalf. Did that make sense to you, sis?
Yes.
Okay. And let me know what happens after you do your letter to and also make sure you deal with them in writing. You must write letters, writing. Phone calls do not protect you because there's no documentation of what transpired during the telephone call. So you want to be writing letters or get their email address and write emails, but stay away from the phone calls. The phone calls doesn't leave you with any proof. We need proof, and the phone calls don't leave us with any proof. You got me?
Yes.
Okay, so keep me posted on that, sweetie.
Okay.
You have my cell number?
Yes, but wait, there's three other.
Okay,
there are
give me.
three other sons too that they have different situations.
Okay, give me the second one. What grade is the second one in?
He's in seventh grade.
And what's his issue?
Okay, he was in special ed, but I took him out. He was in special ed for at least 4 years in the same school district. He's in the seventh grade now, and I took him out. And ever since I took him out, they have been harassing him. They keep suspending him. They end up calling the cops on him.
For what? What is he doing? They called the cops on him. They suspended. What is he doing to get these suspensions?
They allegedly said that he told a girl, you have a face I can rape. I said, what? I never even heard anybody say that. He said he didn't say it. But anyway, they suspended him and called the cops on him for that. And then he had in-school suspension for something else. He got into a verbal altercation with another student, and then the other student, he threatened to kill my son, and they didn't do anything to him. But they gave my son in-school suspension, and then he got another one for not doing a detention. They just been messing with him ever since I took him off of special ed. But also, he's not on grade level, and I don't think.
Why did you take him out of special ed? Why did you take him out of?
Because he never should have been on special ed in the first place. He just was kind of lazy. He's very smart. His own teacher told me, she said, well, he's smart. That's another problem. He has some kind of insomnia problem where he cannot fall asleep at night, and then he ends up falling asleep in school. She said he would be fine if he just wouldn't fall asleep. And I've tried everything to get him to not fall asleep, but nothing is working.
Okay.
He's not on grade level.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this. Let me say this. With regard to this child, listen up. With regard to this child, number one, are you who? Okay, you talking to someone? You listening to me? Who's?
Yes, that's not me talking.
Okay, everyone else, I need you to mute your phone because I'm hearing conversations. Please mute your phone. I don't want to hear any conversations, please. Thank you. Okay, number one, I agree with your decision to take him out of special ed. I don't like kids in special ed when it's not necessary, when they don't need it. However, if the child has behavior problems, and I'm not saying your son does, I'm saying this for the benefit of everyone listening. If the child has behavior problems, then taking him out of special ed can be quite risky. Remember, a special ed kid can only be suspended 10 total days out of the school year before the IEP team has to give consent for additional days of suspension. Special ed kids only get 10 days. Now, regular ed kids don't have a limit. Regular ed kids can be suspended as often as the principal wants. There's no protection on the total number of suspension days for a regular ed kid. Now, they can't be suspended more than 10 days at a time. They cannot be suspended more than 10 days at a time. 11 days of suspension is a temporary expulsion, but there is no limit. With special ed kids, there is a limit. So although I don't like children being in special ed, I have to say that if the child is a behavior problem, if you don't have any discipline or self-control, it's best to leave him in sometimes so he doesn't get crucified with suspensions. So with that being said, and I don't want him back in special ed, but with that being said, if he is what they're trying to paint him to be, then sometimes that special ed protection can help. Now, let me ask you another question. Does this son have any outside diagnoses of any types? Does he have an ADHD or any outside diagnoses?
Yes, but school doesn't know anything about it.
Okay, good. Well, if they don't know, we don't want them to know. But let me ask you, what is the diagnosis? What is the outside diagnosis?
The depression, ADHD.
Okay. Well, we don't want them to know about the depression. We don't want them to know about the depression, not necessarily because if they know about the depression, they might try to use that as a way to invade your privacy and sick child protective services on you, and we don't want that. However, on the ADHD side, although I don't agree with ADHD at all, I think it's a fraud, you could potentially, because of that, you could demand a 504 accommodation plan. And let's say hypothetically, if you requested of the parent for your child to receive a 504 accommodation plan, then that could be for the depression and the ADHD or one or the other. And that could help explain some of his potential behavior. And the 504 plan would limit how they discipline your son. So they wouldn't be able to constantly suspend them because you can't discriminate a kid on the basis of behavior. And in teenagers, depression presents as angry behavior. Let me say that again. In teenagers, depression presents as angry behavior, which is to say, if you requested a 504 plan for your son for depression and ADHD, then that establishes that his behavior is related to the depression and the ADHD, which makes it difficult for the school to keep suspending him because you cannot discriminate against a child on the basis of a disability. So the 504 is not IEP though. 504 is different. It's not special ed, but it does give the child accommodation. So your son would get like regular breaks. If he gets angry, maybe he can go to a certain classroom and de-escalate himself, take a few minutes to get his mind back together. You know, he might have a mentor in the school, somebody who can go to when he gets frustrated. So you might want to, since he does have outside diagnoses, you might want to consider introducing a 504 plan request. However, because we don't want them in your business. However, so that's one route. You might have to pull that if he can't get his act together. The second, if you think the school is discriminating against your son because you took him out of special ed, then you might have to lodge a complaint with the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. You could claim that this is a racial bias because I took my kid out of special ed and they did not like that since he's a black boy. That's where they want to put all the black boys. And now he's being picked on because I took him out. So you could allege discrimination against you and your son because you chose to remove him from special ed. So you do have that recourse as well. So you got a couple of routes you can go with him. You can go to 504 route. You can go to civil rights complaint route. You could also go the No Child Left Behind route, which is to say that the school he's in has criminalized your son. He's not going to get a fair chance. And now the district has to transfer him to another school because No Child Left Behind says the child has a right to go to school in a safe environment. And if you don't feel your son is in a safe environment, he's constantly being singled out and criminalized by the teachers, then you could demand of the superintendent that he be transferred to another school where he's not going to be discriminated against. So you got a couple of ways you can go, and you might just want to take a couple of days and decide how you want to move on that.
Okay.
And give me the third kid.
Okay, third kid. too. I came out at the beginning of September. He's not having any behavioral problems. He just, the grades are so poor, but he's fighting me when I'm trying to help him because, like I said, they're behind. They're all behind.
What do you mean he's fighting you? He's fighting you. He's fighting you over what?
Like, literally, I'll say, okay, all right, we're done your regular homework now. Let's do some more extra work.
What grade is he?
Brush up on your skills because you have chunks of education missing since you've been in special ed all those years, and then he'll literally start throwing himself against the wall. He'll throw a tantrum. He's 11 going 12. So his thing is he's just lazy. I don't want to do none of the work. I don't want to learn.
What grade is he in?
He's in the 6th grade.
Okay, and it sounds to me like he's gotten kind of lazy and dependent on the easy special ed work. That's what it sounds like.
Yes.
And so now you have to break him out of that. Well, first of all, let me say this. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, because you have the situation with the stepdad, and then you're raising these 4 boys on your own, and they all have their different challenges. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you have a support group. Make sure you get some time alone, because you're in a very challenging situation right now, and I don't want it to get the best of you. So please, please, please make sure you're taking care of yourself. Now, getting back to him, you're going to have to break him out of that laziness, because special ed has conditioned him to be lazy, which is one of the reasons why I don't like it. You're going to have to break him out of that. And the way you do it is with consistent rewards and consequences. Consistent rewards. In other words, you give him a certain amount to get his work done, a certain amount of time to get his work done. If it ain't done by that time, he might go to bed early. If it ain't done by that time, he might lose his cell phone the next day. If it ain't done by that time, he got to go and clean up the neighborhood with a trash can and don't come back till his bag is full. I mean, you're going to have to make him uncomfortable when he does not achieve what you want him to achieve. Consequences must make the child uncomfortable. If they don't make the child uncomfortable, then they don't work. And an ineffective consequence isn't going to bring about a change in behavior. Children have to be motivated to change. And they get motivated by you giving them enough uncomfortability that they decide it's best that I do what my mom wants me to do, because I don't want to suffer no more of these consequences. So you got to make sure your consequence game is up. And then you also need to have a reward schedule. Okay, and he's 6th grade, so his rewards, okay, should come on a schedule. That is to say that you do not reward a child every time they do something right. You do not reward a child every time they do something right. He may get a reward at the end of every 2 weeks. Okay, after 2 weeks, if you had 11 good days of homework and schoolwork and I didn't have to talk to you and you practice your reading and your math, if you get 11 days out of 2 weeks, there'll be a reward for you at the end of 2 weeks. Okay, never demand perfection. If you demand perfection, it will only frustrate the child and they will stop trying. So never demand perfection. Okay, but you need to put him on a behavior plan. You might even want to get you a calendar, a big calendar you hang up. And at the end of every day before he goes to bed, y'all will review his academics. You say, listen, son, you didn't do well today. You're getting a sad face. And let me tell you why you're getting a sad face, because you didn't get your homework done on time, or it was the quality was poor, or I had to talk to you too many times. So today is a sad face. Tomorrow might be a smiley face. So this way he can keep track of how well he's doing. Okay. And then at the end of 2 weeks or the end of a week, if you want to start with just a week, you can start with just a week. 4 good days out of 5 or 5 good days out of 7, however you set it up. And if he has more good days than negative, he had a good week, there's a reward at the end of the week for a good week. But there's a consequence every day. There is a consequence every day that he does not have a successful day. You can break him out of that. It's going to take some time. You got to be consistent. Okay. And I'm going to give you, the 45-day rule. Okay. 45 days. If a parent is consistent with their discipline for 45 days, you can weaken a behavior that you want to get rid of. You can bring about what we call in psychology extinction. Extinction is when you eliminate the behavior that you do not want to see. You can bring about extinction. You can weaken it in 45. 90 days, you can be done with it. So right now, we're about to go into February. So if you go to whole February to whole March, the rest of January, by April the 1st, because it's going to start getting warm, by April the 1st, your son's behavior problem of not getting his work done and not applying himself can all but be gone if you go consistent on him right now. So you're going to have to go straight Rambo, straight consistent, giving him consequences every day he messed up. And by the time April 1st comes, you should see a big change in your son. But it's all up to you. Remember the rules of behavior. And I talk about these in my book, Psychoacademic Holocaust. The rules of behavior, okay? The most committed person wins out in the behavior game. And what I mean by that, if your son is more committed to doing what he wants to do than you are committed to changing what he does, you've already lost. If a parent is not more committed to changing their child's behavior than the child is committed to maintaining the misbehavior, you have already lost before you even started. If your son knows that you're not committed to making him behave differently, he already won. It's no need to even waste your time. So there must be a psychological commitment before there is a physical commitment. You must psychologically commit to changing your son's behavior before you actually see a physical change.
Okay. Now, being that, like you said, it's almost February, what do you think the likelihood of them being able to be promoted to the next grade?
Well, for the ones who have an IEP, IEP team determines program. Remember, so for the ones who have an IEP, you need to request an IEP meeting, and together with the IEP team, you guys will decide if it's in his best interest to be promoted. But for special ed kids, if the parent doesn't want a special ed child to be retained, it doesn't mean that they can't retain them against your objection, but it is very difficult to retain a special ed child against the parent's wishes. So for your IEP sons, you can just call an IEP meeting and say, I disagree with him being retained. I will not sign off on it. I want my son to move on. With the regular kids, you don't have that type of power. So unless you can prove that it was unfair grading or he was discriminated against or extenuating circumstances, he may have to be retained. But what you need to get is you need to get a copy of the parent's handbook for your school district. Get a copy of your parent's handbook for your school district and see what the policy is on retention. See what the policy is on retention. I would also go to the State Department of Education website and see what the state law is on retention. So you always want to know the state law for a problem you have, and you want to know the school district policy for a problem you have. And then you want to see if there's a contradiction between the state law and the school district policy. Because if there is a contradiction, then sometimes you can exploit the contradiction for your child on your child's behalf. Now, just so you know, if you feel that your child needs to be promoted and that they are quote unquote illegally trying to retain your son, you can petition the State Department of Education. You can contact the State Department of Education to have them investigate that case. You can write a letter of grievance to the State Department of Education, State Secretary of Education, and ask that a case of potential, what's the word for it when you break the law, that the school is violating the law by illegally retaining your son. And if you claim that what they're doing is illegal, it goes against state law, the way in which they're trying to retain your son, then the state has to investigate that, because they can't allow school districts to violate the law, which also means that you could write a letter to your state rep or your U.S. rep. Don't forget your state representative, okay, and your state senator. Your state representative and your state senator, they are the lawmakers. They have an obligation to protect your child's state rights. So if you feel that the school district is violating the child's state right, then you can get your local law, your local state legislators involved on your behalf as well.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let me also say this though. If they not on grade level, okay, how do if they're 3 grades below grade level or more, they might need to be retained. Sometimes retention is necessary. I've retained children as a principal in the past. I've retained children. And as a school psychologist, sometimes I recommend that a child be retained instead of being promoted. Sometimes it's better that the child be retained and get what they missed as opposed to spending the rest of their life in special ed trying to play catch up. If a child missed a whole bunch of time, he might need to be retained. Graduating at 18 and graduating at 17 is not a big difference. And if being in school an extra year in the same grade is going to get him what he missed, I don't have a problem with that. But that's only if he's learning. Now, if the child is at a school where ain't nobody learning nothing, then it ain't no benefit to retain the kid. Now, we don't want to keep retaining a child because after 2-3 years of retention, that kid is likely to drop out of high school because no child wants to be in the class when they 3 and 4 grades older than the other kids. No child wants to be in the class when they 3 or 4 grades older than another kid.
Okay.
And make sure you're working with them yourself too. A lot of these skills, make sure you or get a tutor, or you could also get a tutor. College students, retired teachers are there to be tutored. Other high school students could tutor your kids. So tutoring, knowing what I know about special ed, especially since you took your kids out, which I think was a good thing. Should have never been in there in the first place, probably. I would get my kid a tutor over special ed. Nothing special is happening in special ed. And this is what I need Black parents to understand. There's nothing special happening in special ed. There's nothing special. A tutor will benefit a kid 50 times more than a special ed class. Remember, the IEP gives the child what? Individual education, allegedly. But how many Black kids with an IEP get one-on-one time with the teacher? Most of them don't. At best, they get small group instruction. At best, they get small group instruction. They don't get no one-on-one time. A tutor gives the child one-on-one time. Special ed teacher doesn't give the child one-on-one time. So a tutor is always better than a special ed teacher, in my opinion.
Okay. And that's, my youngest son, and then I'm done. I don't want to take too much time. I'll try to be brief as I can with him, but my youngest son, he's 8, and he still is a special ed. He's only been in special ed for 1 year, but he was in special ed earlier for a speech and language problem. He has a very bad speech impediment, and I was 30% of the time, me and his brother can understand what he's saying. Other than that, we can't understand. It's very bad. So when he wasn't even school age ready, I went to an agency. I said, look, I think he needs some kind of speech therapy. And they agreed, and they gave him speech. And then he went to Head Start, and he got speech in Head Start. And then when it was time to get transitioned into kindergarten, they said, oh, well, he's not eligible for speech anymore. He doesn't need speech anymore. I said, well, what do you mean? He still talks the same way. I still can't understand what he's saying. So I appealed it, and I lost. So first,
you appealed what? You appealed what? Wait, you appealed what in loss?
That they were taking him off speech. This wasn't through the school district. Because remember, he was only in Head Start, and before Head Start, he wasn't.
Do you feel he still needs speech now? Do you feel he still needs speech now?
No, he's getting it now, but 3 years went by and he wasn't getting it because they kept telling me he wasn't eligible for it.
Okay, he's getting it now. When did he start getting it? He started getting it this school year? He started getting it this school year. Did he start getting speech this? Okay, the end of last school year. What grade is he in now?
He's in the 3rd grade.
Okay, he's in the third grade. Did you ever request that the current school district evaluate him for speech prior to
Yes.
last year? When did you first request that he be evaluated for speech by the current school district?
In kindergarten.
Okay, so they finally qualified him for speech in second grade. Is that correct? The end of last year.
Yes.
That means they owe you compensatory education because you said your son needed speech in kindergarten. They did not give him speech until the end of second grade. So that means the whole kindergarten year was wasted without speech. The whole first grade year was wasted without speech. And just about the whole third grade year was wasted without speech. So they owe you compensatory ed. Your son was denied a service that he was entitled to, and he was denied that service for 3 years. So you have the right, if you want to pursue it, you have the right to request an IEP meeting in demand compensatory ed. I told y'all he needed this 3 years ago. There's no way he needs it now and didn't need it then. I need you to understand that. There's no way you need speech in third grade and didn't need it in kindergarten. He should have been had it. In fact, if he got it early enough, he probably wouldn't need it now. So they gave you the runaround. You're entitled to comp ed. I would call an IEP meeting and say, y'all owe me compensatory ed for speech services that my son was entitled to and never got. Y'all owe me compensatory education for speech services that my son was entitled to that he never received. And of course, they're going to try to refuse to pay and make excuses. And that's when you may have to take them to due process with the state. Now, you're in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so all you would do is go to the State Department of Education website for Pennsylvania, okay, and you would fill out a due process complaint, basically alleging that the school denied your son a service he needed that they're now giving him. And the fact that they're now giving it to him establishes the fact that he should have been getting it. The fact that he's getting it now establishes the fact that he should have been getting it. And the hearing officer for the state will come out. They will hear your complaints. They will hear the school district complaints, and then they will decide who they're going to go with. And they're probably going to go with you. They're going to have to. Because if he's getting it now, he should have been getting it. And what will happen is they will take all the special ed money that the school would have got for your son, and they're going to put it in an escrow account, and you'll be able to go out and get additional speech services until you spend up all the money that has been put aside for the years that your son was denied his legal right to speech and learning services since kindergarten. Did you understand what I was saying about comp ed?
Yeah.
Okay, you're entitled to it. You're entitled to it. Now, you will need proof.
His IEP meeting is coming up, and he's not just in for speech now, he's in for a learning disability too. But he was so far behind. I couldn't take him out of special ed. I would argue that he's on some areas, he's on a preschool, and I complained early on, and when he was in kindergarten, he didn't get homework, and one day would do it. So I would go to the teacher. I said, "Well, how is he in school? Because he can't do any of the work that he's doing." And they say, "Oh no, nothing's wrong. He knows what we're doing." And then first grade came around, same thing. I would say, "Well, y'all keep saying he's okay, but he's not able to do any of his work that he's sending home. I'm going over the homework, but he acts like I'm speaking in Chinese. He doesn't understand. Sometimes he acts like he doesn't know how to even write or count or anything." And then finally, at the end of second grade, like I said, right along with the speech, they said, "Oh yeah, he does have a learning disability. He needs to be in special ed." But
Okay.
like I said, he has an IEP meeting coming up, and I wanted to know what was the next step, because overall it's not working. He has not learned anything. Nothing. The speech that he is getting, it's not even nothing's working.
Well, I think he's too young for special ed. I don't think we should have necessarily allowed him to be evaluated for a learning disability. Third grade, too young, in my opinion. But you're just going to have to advocate for him. If not, just downright reverse that decision. He should continue to get his speech. You definitely want to see to that. You definitely want to see to the comp ed. But in terms of him being in special ed as a third grader, we got to watch this because it seems like all of the boys been in special ed. So, you know, we don't want to make that a part of the family culture. Special ed shouldn't be part of the family culture. You know, but if you feel that's the best thing for him right now, so be it a third grade with a learning disability, I think that's premature. I think it's premature. So just think about that.
Okay.
Now you're in Sharon Hill, so I'm in Pennsylvania myself, Philly. So if there ever comes a time where we may have to meet face to face to go over all these different situations with your sons, let me know. At the bare minimum, I think you need to request a complete copy of all your son's records. You should have that so you can, because they all have their own unique histories, and that's a lot for a parent to keep up. You don't just have one case, you got four. So you need to get a complete copy of all their records, and if we need to meet face to face, we can do that.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
All right. Thanks, love, and good luck with that.
Thank you.
Is there another question on the call this morning?
Hello?
Okay, I
Was
heard.
that close to Pittsburgh? Good morning, Dr. Umar. Was that close to Pittsburgh where the sister lives at?
Nah, she's in Sharon Hill, right outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Is
Good
there?
morning.
Good,
Dr. Umar, Sister Asia. I say that to say because I know there are some sisters in Pittsburgh at the temple that look for children to tutor. So that may be an outlet that she can seek out. There are a lot of moms, a lot of sisters. They volunteer their time with children, especially the homework and situation. So just want to
Okay.
put that out there.
no
I have a
problem.
question.
Yes, ma'am. Where you calling from?
Good day. This Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, wait. Say. Well, no. You're too low, sweetheart. Where you calling from? And speak. You sound low.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. Okay, you're clear now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, good. Great. Good day, everybody. I was calling because my daughter's not in special education. However, she does go through a Pan-African Black school, or I still call it a freedom school. And right off the bat, her father's not in the home and everything. And so we've had issues with that. But right off the bat, one of the sisters that does, I guess, special education there at the school, she immediately, like we hadn't been at the school for less than a month and a half. And we had my daughter on this online thing called Cognitive Fit and GI Fit. And it's basically an online game, brain training game thing. And I'm just like,
Okay. Make sure you.
do you know anything about Cognitive Fit? And just what are your thoughts on that? And then my second question is, Dr. Umar, I'm very brief because she's not in special ed, and I know you use this call for.
Slow down. You talking too fast, sis, and your voice is low. Slow down. You're going too fast,
Okay.
and your voice is kind of going in and out. So make sure you talk straight into the phone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So essentially, do you know anything about Cognitive Fit?
Cogni
And
Fits?
then my second,
Nah.
Cognitive Fit. It's an online brain training thing.
Nah, but be careful of those online brain training programs. I'm not going to categorically invalidate all of them, but you want to be careful because there's a lot of scams out there. People are running all types of hustles in the name of building your brain and building memory and building this and building that. And a lot of them are just hustles. So be careful.
Okay. And then my second question is also very brief. I was at the King Center last night, and I was waiting for you, and I did have a comment, and the crowd got kind of mad at me because they were basically saying to blame the victim, essentially to blame African people for our condition, and to basically pray with the slave master descendants. And so I just wanted to know, if you don't mind, why you weren't there. Because I asked a couple of brothers, the aide and man, and he was like, he's an official over that organization. And he was like, they were sponsoring the event. And he basically said that you canceled. And I didn't feel in my spirit that was true. And someone else said that, and I just didn't feel like, and then so you just didn't come out, and I just left after that. So just wanted to know, and then I'm done.
Well, nah, some things that came up with my scheduling that didn't allow for me to be there. However, I would say that I was a little concerned. Over the selection of participants. When I looked at everyone who was invited, it didn't seem like there was anyone else representing the Pan-Africanist or nationalist or grassroots platform as it relates to the challenges that exist between white America and black America. And I definitely don't have a problem representing that platform alone. It could be me against all of them, and I would have been fine with that. But then it gets into a question of whether or not I was going to be given adequate time to address and defend the grassroots perspective on black and white relations in America. There was some concern from some folks that I would not have been given an opportunity to really defend and espouse on my platform, and that the whole multicultural, colorblind, let's love white people platform would have been allowed to dominate the discussion. And that was a little bit of a concern, but that's not why I was there. The reason I wasn't there is because some scheduling conflicts came up and some unforeseen circumstances that didn't allow me to be there. But I did inform Dr. Bernice King, much respect to her for the invite, and the King Center. I did apologize, and they knew in advance. They knew in advance that I would not be there, but I did tell them that I was willing to make up for my absence, and that if there was any upcoming program that the King Center wanted, would like for me to participate in, then they could just let me know, and I would come down there and make up on that absence free of charge.
Well, it was very much what you said earlier, blame the victim. It was very odd. I almost felt like I was in Twilight Zone. Her cousin, who was also on the panel with her, she voted for Donald Trump and had no qualms about it, and basically said this in front of the entire community. And the community was supposed to accept it while we're to move on. Just as you had the Sons of the Confederacy that were standing there, that were there on the panel, and then you had the National Action Network without the word black in their name. So it was very much the pacifist sort of event. And so thank you for your time, and continue to have a good day, and I will see you in San Diego.
Thank you, love. Looking forward to it.
All right. Peace. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Where you calling from?
This is Brandy calling from Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My son is in the second grade. He's in special ed. He's in kindergarten.
He's been in special ed since kindergarten for what? What classification?
They said it's significant developmental delay.
Okay, and you're in Georgia. Developmental delay. Okay, go ahead.
Because he wasn't talking that well.
If he wasn't talking well, he should have got speech, but he didn't need special ed in kindergarten. But go ahead.
Okay. The nurse practitioner, she said that he had it was so going into kindergarten, he didn't talk that well. Some things I could understand, some things I couldn't. So I agreed to get him for that. And he wound up, so now he's been special for speech, motor skills, and I think reading. But yet, I'm one of those parents that haven't really been on top of it until.
You got to get on top of it. You got to get on top of it.
Yeah.
Because so far today, none of you guys have known your child's specific special ed classification. That's not good. Y'all got to be, if they're going to be in special ed, y'all got to know what's going on. But go ahead.
Okay, so now I'm working on him with his reading. He reads great. If they want to send him home those sight words, they don't send him sight words anymore, first of all. His reading is fine. His math is weak. And as far as speech, he's doing things that he didn't used to do. Now he's stuttering. He didn't used to stutter. He's doing this thing to where, he's like, if he wants to say, I want to go outside, he's like, I don't know what that is. He didn't used to do that. So I'm like, okay, is speech working? I don't feel like it's working because now he's doing things that he's never done. And now some things he says very clearly. I don't have a problem with. A lot of things that he says, but some things he doesn't. And I'm like, okay, what is speech for if he's now doing things he hasn't done? And then the teacher says, she calls me and she's saying that he's still behind as far as his
at grade level work. So I see at the IEP meeting coming up next month, and they're doing another reevaluation.
Let me ask you a question. When you said he was in special ed, were you referencing speech services only, or are you saying he's in special ed for more than speech? Because speech is a special ed classification, the speech and language impairment. Is that what you're referencing, or is he in special ed for an additional disability on top of the speech and language service that he gets?
He's in there for more than speech.
Okay, but we don't know what the other classification is.
Motor, they say sometimes writing, like a motor skill.
Motor skill is not a disability classification in special ed, so it wouldn't be that. You gotta get them psych evals. When the child is first qualified for special ed, he was qualified based on an evaluation. There's an evaluation report. So because he gets speech, there was a speech and language evaluation that was done by the speech pathologist, which you should have, but there also needs to be a separate psychological or psychoeducational evaluation that was done to qualify him for special ed, for the learning disability, or whatever else the classification is, which we don't know right now, but we need to find out. But you need to get them psych reports, because right now we know speech, but we don't know what the other thing is. And we should know that. Personally, your son is too young to be in special ed for anything other than speech. He's too young. The fact that we don't.
One question for you.
Go ahead.
So this IEP meeting is coming up. I've been reading the videos. I haven't had issues with special ed. I'm wondering, should I just take him out of special ed completely, or just take him out of everything else and keep him in speech? Because my plan, the goal is to homeschool him starting in August, because I feel like he is behind. Like the young lady said, sometimes some homework home, and he doesn't even know how to do it at all. I want to take the time to be able to get him caught up. But I'm working for now, since he is still in school, in public school, from May. Should I take him out of special ed totally? Because I want to get that tag off his back, or should I just keep him in speech and get rid of everything else? I don't know.
It depends. Does he?
If I take him out, he's going to really be behind. I'm sorry.
He's going to be behind anyway in special ed. He's going to be behind anyway. Special ed don't catch you up. Special ed does not catch you up. I mean, for a kid that young, if he's behind.
The percentage rate was who actually gets out of special ed. He actually let the parents take him out.
I don't think he should have been in the first place. But if you're leaving him in to catch up, he ain't going to catch up.
Tell me.
If it were me, I would take him out. I would work with him myself or get him a tutor. Babies that nobody belong in special ed unless they got a real problem. And babies that young definitely shouldn't be in there. Well, first we got to find out what he in there for, because we don't even know that yet. Like, what exactly is he in there for besides the speech? But I don't think he belongs in there. I mean, we should first get those reports. What you could do is write a letter to the school and tell them that at the IEP meeting, if not before then at the IEP meeting, you would like a complete copy of your child's academic records. You at least want to see the previous evaluations to see what he's in there for. Like, you got to know why your kid is in special ed. You got to know that.
So get a copy of the academic records and see what it says.
Yeah, at least the psychological evaluation report that qualified him for special ed. Because he's speech plus something else. He's speech plus something else. What is that something else? Now let me ask you, how often does he go to special ed? Is he in a special ed class? Like, is he there all day, part time?
somebody put their phone on mute.
Please put your phone on mute. Y'all talking on my call. Come on, family. Come on. Put your phone on mute. Stop being ignorant. Whoever, somebody keep calling my phone from Dallas. Whoever this is calling from Dallas, I'm going to block you because you keep calling. I'm on my Tuesday morning call. You're not supposed to be calling me when I'm on my call because you're interrupting what I'm doing. So whoever this is, I'm going to block you because you just keep calling. And I'm on my call. I don't like that. Y'all know Tuesday, I do parents. You shouldn't be calling my phone like that. So I'm blocking you when I get off because whoever you is, you don't understand that if I'm sending you the voicemail, stop calling me. But you keep calling. So I'm blocking you. But go ahead, good sister.
I forgot what we're saying.
How long is he in special ed?
Oh, thank you. Okay, yeah, he is in a regular classroom, but they take him out of the classroom to go to those special ed things.
Right.
Or the teacher comes in and maybe gets 3 or 4 of them at a time in the corner and does things with them.
Right. But the thing is, we need to know they're doing things with him, but doing things with him for what? And that relates to the disability. You know, is he in there for a reading disability? Is it a math disability? You know, is it something else? We got to know what that is. So I would say get the eval. Whoa. Y'all can't have me on speaker. Mute. What y'all doing out there on the telephone line? Come on. But you got to get the eval and get back in touch with me. Until I know what he in special ed for, it's hard for me to help you navigate this. Get a copy of his record and then get back in touch with me. And then I can help you better.
Okay.
But I got to know what he in there for.
Okay, one quick question. I'm sorry, sister. One quick question.
Sure.
How do you feel about online charter schools?
How do I feel about online charter schools? I am not a fan of cyber schools. I'm not a fan of it. I think half of all learning is social interaction. I think when a child is being taught by a computer, as opposed to a person, they lose so much of the rich contextual experience that comes from being in a real classroom with real classmates with a real teacher. Okay? Half of all learning is social learning. Half of all learning is social. And to be taught by a computer, I'm not a fan of that. The reason why it's so popular now is because it's so cost efficient. It has nothing to do with the kid. Let's be clear. Cyber schools are not on the rise because it benefits children. No way, shape, or form is it better to be taught by a computer than in a classroom with a teacher surrounded by your peers. The reason why they're so popular is because they're so cost efficient. It's about money. If I have a cyber charter school, I don't have to have a building. I don't have to have as many teachers as I normally would have. I don't have to worry about lunch. I don't have to worry about school buses. I don't have to worry about class trips. I mean, I save all that money, and all I have to do is give the kid a laptop and they do everything from home and some books. So it's about money. You know, I'm not a big fan of it. I know sometimes it is necessary. If you got a kid who, you know, got medical issues and can't be in school, or you got a situation where the kid is constantly being suspended, bullied, picked on, threatened, you might need it. But for a child as young as your son, 3rd grade, a cyber school for a 3rd grader, I can't support that. Not for the young ones. The young ones, homeschooling is good if you got the time, if you're organized, if you're going to stick to your instructional program. You're not going to be distracted, constantly postponing the lessons. Homeschooling can be good if you have the time, the dedication, and the discipline. If you have that, homeschool could be good. If you don't have that, homeschool could be just as detrimental as regular school. But get that eval. Get that eval. Hold on. Get that eval, sis, and get back in touch with me.
Okay.
All right. No problem.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Go right ahead, good sister. Where you calling from?
I'm in Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is like outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And my son is 4 years old. And so I never put him in daycare or anything. I kept him with me because I didn't want anybody else raising my children. And he has, everyone in my family, everyone in my home can understand him when he's talking. So I had to put him in Georgia pre-K. His teacher is an African-American woman, and she gave me a recommendation that she thought that he needed speech. So because it was speech, and I know that his speech isn't as clear as the other kids, I find that the consent for him to be evaluated. I didn't understand anything about the special education process or anything like that, but I have a good friend who follows you. So after I left the evaluation, he called me, and I was distraught. And he was like, man, you need to listen to Dr. Umar because you're too strong for this, and you know more than what the people telling you. But anyway, at the evaluation, the lady told me he does not have a speech problem. He does not have an enunciation problem. That he actually where she expects 5-year-olds to be with speaking. He can count to 20, almost up to 30 sometimes. That all his alphabet, sorting, shapes, colors, everything that he needs to do to go to kindergarten. He's very happy. He plays with other kids that come to my house, other kids whose houses that I take him to. This was an older Caucasian lady, maybe about 60 or 70 years old, and she was going over my personal information. So she was like, well, where's his dad? Because his dad is listed on the paperwork, but we're going through a divorce, so he doesn't live in the house, so he's just literally around the corner from me. And she's like, oh, well, he's not in the house. I'm going to just take him home. She went to scratch his dad's name off the paper. I was like, no, don't take his dad's name off the paperwork, because it's all in his life. So she's like, well, I'm just going to let you know now that I'm recommending him for special education. I'm like, well, I'm going to recommend him for special education if he doesn't need speech. And so she said that he has a developmental delay with, she's recommending him for language and social. She says because if she can't understand what he's saying, then other kids can't understand what he's saying. And I'm like, man, if you talk to him for 15 to 30 minutes, you don't know my son. First of all, he's not comfortable with you yet. And then she said, because I had to prompt him to say his last name. Like, his name is Alvin Bipper. And so when she said, what's your name? He said, Alvin. And I said, what's your last name? Alvin what? And so then he said, she's like, oh, he shouldn't be prompted. So that's about a week ago. Since then, I've been telling Alvin, when you say your name, say your first name and your last name. So now he's saying it, you know, and she's talking to him like she wants him to have college-level answers, like she wants him to have total, complete synthesis. He's answering her questions, but he's not forming the complete synthesis that she would like. So she's telling me the only reason that my baby is happy and caring is because he has a developmental delay. But my son is very smart, and today is the eligibility meeting. And so I typed her email, and I told her that as a careful consideration, I do not agree with your recommendation. I do not want any of your services for my child. I will get a tutor. I will work extra hard with him to bring him up to speed, whatever I need. I don't want to see my son going into kindergarten labeled as special education. She told me that because I signed consent for them to evaluate him, that now by law they have to go through the whole process of putting him in special education. So I told her that I didn't believe that to be true. I need to get a lawyer. She said, well, if you get a lawyer, I'm going to get a lawyer. I said, well, get you a lawyer then. So what is your boss's name? So she gave me her boss's information. Call her. This lady on the phone arguing with me, telling me that they're going to put my son in special. I said, well, I'm telling you, I don't want you guys to do the eligibility meeting. She said that she can't stop the eligibility meeting. So I told her I'll be there today just to listen to see what you guys are doing with my son. But I want to have it in writing when I get there that I'm totally against it and I would like to record it. Do you mind me recording it? She said, yeah, you can record it. Just know that we're going to have to record it too. And she says, we're going to have to go all the way to the IEP process. She said, at the time that we do the IEP, then you can receive special education. So my question to you is, can they actually go through this whole process, even though I keep saying that it's against my wishes? And if they do go all the way up to the IEP and I refuse special education, will they not put it in there? Because she's saying that it's going to be up to the school board's discretion even at that point.
No, that's incorrect. Number one, in order for them to get started with this whole process, you signed paperwork. There is no evaluation unless the parent signs paperwork. So that's what started it, your signature. but you can rescind it at any time. So what you need to do, because I'm hearing you say you told them, you said, you stated, but you have not yet written. Okay, you have not yet written. So there is nothing on paper from you that the school has
And
in
I
there.
wrote the email to her and her boss, and she said she was going to print it out and put it in his file. And then I told her when I got the eligibility thing today that I wanted to put it in writing.
No. Okay, first of all, the she that you're talking about, what is her title? What is her position? The
She's a
person.
speech pathologist.
Okay, it don't go to her. She does not control special ed. The principal is the legal educational rep for that building. Anything that goes on in that building can only go on with the principal's approval. So you need to write a letter to the principal telling them that I am hereby informing you that I am rescinding my request to have my child evaluated for special ed service. I want all testing to stop immediately, and I no longer want my child considered for special education service. I would write that to the principal. I would carbon copy the superintendent. Okay? And I would probably carbon copy the special ed director for the district. So carbon copy the superintendent, carbon copy the special ed director, and then you're going to send them a certified letter. So the principal is going to get it, a certified letter. The superintendent is going to get a certified letter. The director of special ed is going to get a certified letter. Now, hear me out. You can still drop a letter off to the school secretary who will give it to the principal. But the irony of taking a letter to the school office, the irony is you can't prove that they got it because all you did was pass it off. So you still have to do a letter that has delivery confirmation, return receipt, however you do that tracking to prove that it was delivered. Delivery confirmation mail, certified delivery confirmation. Okay, that's the only way you prove they got it is if the post office, FedEx, UPS. When you drop it off, they can say they never got it, they misplaced it, da. So I would still drop it off so they know, but I would still follow up with the mail one so I have proof. I have something in my possession that shows that they signed to receive my letter rescinding this request. Because right now it sounds like they're playing you. It sounds like they're playing you. It sounds like they're going to keep on going because you haven't stopped it the way you're supposed to stop it. You keep on telling them. And the one thing I keep telling you parents, y'all, stop the conversations. You don't need conversations. You need written documentation. You don't have to tell them nothing. This letter, sir. Look at how white folks deal with us. They deal with us on paper. They don't tell you nothing. They'll lie in your face and send you a letter, and it is the letter that sticks because that's documentation. Their whole system is based on documentation. So we have to get out of the conversation. Stop the conversations and get into the documentation. Write your letter today. I would drop it off, and then I would go straight to the post office and send my 3 certified letters so I have proof that it was delivered. They cannot continue if you rescind. The problem is you have not rescinded it yet. And you keep dealing with the speech therapist. Forget her. She's not in charge. The principal is in charge. That's who the letter go to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, let me ask you a quick question for myself. Okay, we're going to stop the process. But was this process an evaluation only for speech? Were they only looking for speech or were they looking for something else? Because if your child needs speech, he should get the speech. Now, speech is a special ed service, but if he needs it, he should get it. So was this about speech?
Yes,
or was...
I agree. But that's what we were supposed to be evaluated for. The speech pathologist says he does not need speech. That his enunciation is fine.
Okay, then, well, do you have...
for special ed instead.
Do you have that on paper? Do you have documentation that the speech pathologist said he don't need the speech?
Well, she told me, her and her boss told me when I come into the meeting today that they would have a copy for me.
Okay, well, there you go. That should end it. That should end it.
Okay.
You could even send a copy of that with your letter. You could even send a copy of that with your letter rescinding your request for an evaluation.
Okay, so that's what I'll do today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
But also, just for the good of everyone listening, and I always talk about this, we have to stop signing permission in the first place. Because with all these cases, you know, we got to come in and stop. And that's fine. If we got to stop it, we got to stop it. But it's better to not even start it. Like, we got to think. I don't think we put enough thinking into this. It's like we just react to whatever white folks want us to do, and then we want to clean it up later. No, stop signing in the first place. We don't even have to go through this. Stop giving white folks permission to evaluate our kids. Stop it, and then we don't have to clean it up later. So we have to learn how to just stop doing it in the beginning.
I agree.
All right. Thanks for the call, sis.
Thank you.
No problem. Is there...
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana. I will be in Chicago on Saturday, February the 25th. And real quickly, before you go, let me just let the listening audience know that I'm in Durham, North Carolina tonight. Durham, North Carolina tonight at the Hayti Heritage Center, 804 Old Fayetteville Road. Doors open up at 4. Dr. Umar Johnson will be presenting from 6 until 9. That's tonight. And then I will be in San Diego, California for the National Independent Black Parent Association West Regional National Invitation Conference. If any of you would like to start a chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association, I hope to see you in San Diego from 9 in the morning until 6 p.m. Friday and Saturday, the 27th and 28th. Okay. Marcus Garvey said the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. We can have all the information. We can have all the organizations. We can have all the ideologies. We can intellectually masturbate until we dead. But if we don't come together and organize, we change nothing. So I'm hoping that many of you go ahead and book your flight and come on out to the Black-owned World Beat Cultural Center, 2100 Park Boulevard, Friday and Saturday, San Diego, 27th and 28th. All my parents on the West Coast, this is for you. Everybody can come from around the country. We move the conference around so that people in different regions have an easier chance to access the conference. So nobody can ever say it wasn't close enough to my home for us to go. The first one was in Baltimore. The second one was in Houston for our parents who are in the South. Baltimore for our parents in the East. Now it's on the West Coast for all my parents on the West Coast. But it is national. So if you can come, please come, because you cannot start a chapter unless you got the training. You cannot start a chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association unless you got the training. And then my first day of Black History Month, I will be at Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland, which is one of our historically Black colleges. Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland. And then I'm looking to be in Mobile, Alabama on the 5th, Saturday, February the 5th. We have Indianapolis, Indiana on Monday, February the 27th. It looks like I'm going to be in Sacramento, California on Saturday, March the 3rd. We're working on Minneapolis right now, St. Louis right now, Chattanooga, Tennessee right now, Nashville, Tennessee. We're working on that as well. Albany, New York. I'll be in Albany, New York for the first time on Monday, February the 13th. And we're still working on other events as well. Go right ahead with your question, sister. And where you calling from again? I'm sorry.
Gary, Indiana.
Go right ahead.
My question is, my son, he is 6 years old. He's in first grade. He goes to a charter school out here. And in kindergarten, I had requested that he get speech. They said in order for him to get speech, he needed to be tested for ADHD and emotional.
That was a lie. That was a lie. You do not need to be tested for ADHD or any emotional problem in order to get speech. If you wanted your child to be evaluated for speech and language impairment to determine if he needs speech and language therapy, all they need to do is give you a permission to evaluate. You sign it, and then the speech pathologist evaluates your child. In fact, when it's a speech eval, no one else needs to see your child except the speech pathologist. So that if they told you that he needed to be tested for ADHD and emotions, that was a flat out lie. And what we should have done is we should have followed up with a letter clarifying exactly what they said. Based on our conversation, you told me my son cannot be evaluated for potential speech service unless he gets evaluated for ADHD. I am not aware of this to be reflective of the law as it relates to special ed services. Can you please confirm that this is exactly what you said? That's what we should have done, but go ahead.
Well, I didn't do that. What I did was I flat out did not allow him to be tested and said I would get speech services on the outside for myself.
Okay. Which is better. Which is better.
He went from kindergarten to first grade, and now I find that I'm still being, I don't want to say pressure, but every time I come into the school for parent-teacher conference or anything, he needs to be tested for ADHD. He needs to be tested for ADHD. I don't see, like, you bring homework home, he does it right away. You know, he's the youngest of my children. And he's a little hyper, but I don't see that. I don't see the ADHD part.
Every child your son's age has ADHD. It's normal boy behavior. What grade is he in?
He's in first grade.
So what is he, 6 years old?
He's 6 years old.
An ADHD evaluation for a 6-year-old is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Every 6-year-old has ADHD. That is absolutely ridiculous. And what you need to know is that if you get him evaluated for that ADHD, the only solution, which is not a solution, the only solution they're going to have for you and your baby is psychiatric medication. That's it. Drugs. All roads to disruptive behavior disorders lead to crack for kids. Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, Metadate, Cyclert. You don't want that stuff for your son. Do not get the eval. If you get the eval, you give them the power to have Child Protective Services force you to medicate your child by threatening to take them from you under the accusation of medical neglect. Black parents all across America are having their children taken from the home under the accusations of medical neglect. It goes on your criminal record. It goes on your child abuse record. Okay. And it can really cause problems for you in life. So that ADHD eval is going to open up a lot of dark doors. Okay. That you don't want to walk through. Don't do it.
I wouldn't allow them to test him for anything. He's currently in a regular classroom. You know, I feel like he functions better maybe sometimes being pulled to size of smaller groups. Of course, the classrooms are huge. There's 30 kids in the classroom. And they keep trying to tell me that in order for him to be pulled aside, he needs to have an IEP. He needs to be tested for this and that.
Nah.
But is that true?
Is what true? Exactly. Say that. Is what true?
For him to be pulled aside or out of the classroom, he has to have an IEP.
Pulled aside out of the classroom for what reason?
I just feel like sometimes he gets so distracted that he's around the other kids. He wants to play versus doing the work. But to me, that's every 6-year-old. I
agree. First of all, your son, what kind of school he go to? Is this a predominantly black school?
It is a predominantly black school, yes.
Are the teachers, what are the teachers, predominantly black or predominantly white?
For the most part, they're black. His kindergarten teacher was a Caucasian lady. His first grade teacher, she is an African-American woman.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of males in the school either. Like
It's not. Well, see,
women.
The problem with the education system is that boys are not allowed to be boys. Schools are ran by women. Schools are dictated by female energy. The school is a feminine institution. And because it is a feminine institution, masculine alpha male children do not adjust well in school. This is why we have one of the reasons that we have such a big black male dropout rate, push out rate. This is why special ed is almost exclusively male. This is why Psychiatric meds is almost exclusively male. This is why ADHD is almost exclusively male. Why is it that there's more girls in public school? There's way more girls than boys in public school. But why is it that the boys dominate in special ed? They dominate in discipline school. They dominate in ADHD. They dominate in psychiatric med. They dominate in emotional disturbance. Because boys are discriminated against in school. You see, schools are not for alpha male children. Public school as designed does not benefit an alpha male boy. A boy with energy, testosterone, charisma, backbone, there's no place for him in school. Schools can only cater to boys who are docile, okay? Extremely docile, okay? It's very, very hard for our boys to be successful. So you have to understand that, so you don't let these people influence you to marginalize or classify, label your boy just because he doesn't know how to act like a girl. You could put that same boy in another school where there's enough black men around, where boys are allowed to be boys, and all these so-called problems would disappear. They're making your son the scapegoat. The problem is the system, not your son. Furthermore, even if you thought that it was a problem with your son, I would have to advise you against it because he's too young. He's 6 years old. I'm not supporting any evaluation for a 6-year-old unless you think it's speech. I'm not supporting no autistic eval that young. I'm not supporting no learning disability eval that young. I don't support ADHD, conduct disorder, and oppositional defiant disorder any damn way. So there's nothing for your son I'm going to support except speech and language, or if he had a hearing impairment or a vision impairment. Other than that, no. Because remember now, these labels that we give out cannot, okay, cannot be proven to exist. They cannot be proven to exist. So, be very careful about that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Get to the end of the year. Your job, we are in January. We got the whole February, March, April, and May. You got 4 more months. I know that's not a little bit of time, but what I always tell parents, when you're in a situation that you don't agree with, can we get to the end of the school year? Because remember, next year is a new teacher, a new grade. He starts fresh. Get him to the end of the school year. It would be good if you could just ask that he be transferred to another class. But of course, principals don't like to transfer children because once other parents find out that one kid got transferred, everyone going to want their kid to get transferred. So they don't like to do that. Teachers don't like to receive new kids in the middle of the year, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Okay, so try to
That's
get...
how I kind of felt in kindergarten. Let's get to the end of the year. Maybe we'll get a new teacher in 5th grade. And now she brought this up to me right before Christmas. And then it was like, he needs to be tested now or right before we go on Christmas break. And I'm like, well, wait, hold on. I need to think about this. And now I feel like, okay, do I pull him out of the school completely after the end of this school year? Because now I feel like every teacher knows about him.
Right. Okay. There's always the risk of teachers biasing other teachers against children. They do it on the regular. I've seen it as principal. I see it as school psychologist. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's actually see what happens when he comes back next year. But I will say to you, once you feel that the school has criminalized or demonized or marginalized your son, sometimes the only recourse left is to take him out and put him in another school. But be certain about that, though. Be certain. But it happens. It does happen when the school criminalizes our boys. That's when they've made up their mind that he can't do nothing right, or he can't learn without special ed, or he can't function without medication. Once they've come to that mental commitment that there's no other option for your son, it's time to pull him out the school. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
Because it doesn't sound like your son is a behavior issue. Am I correct?
No, he's not a behavior issue.
Yeah, so I think we're fine.
He's a spoiled issue. You tell him no, he cried.
Okay.
And that's how he's at school.
Well, you will need to, you're going to have to break him out of that. And that means if he don't have a good day at school, he might need to go to bed early, do your homework, eat your dinner early. You're in bed even before the sun go down. Take all the toys out the room. Okay, nothing in there that he can use to stimulate himself or entertain himself. And with a young kid, attention is more important than oxygen. Remember that. So the consequences as well as the rewards should center on attention. And the most important attention for your son is you. So if he doesn't get the mommy time that he needs every day after school, he will start to behave differently to get the mommy time. But you're going to have to discipline yourself. You're going to have to discipline yourself not to fall for the sad faces and the guilt trips and everything else. And you got to remind yourself that I'm doing this because he's a black boy in the United States of America. My job is to teach him discipline. And if he does not have this, if he does not have this discipline before he leaves my house, white America will be waiting to destroy my son's future. So it is very important that black parents accept, engage, and embrace your obligation to teach your children discipline. That spoiled stuff, we got to get rid of it. That is not going to benefit him in the school system. You got to get rid of that spoiledness, get rid of it. And you do that with consistent discipline and rewards too. Double motivation is what I refer to it in my book. Double motivation is the principle that says a child will change their behavior if you motivate them enough to do it, with both positive consequences and negative consequences. Positive consequences are going to be the rewards. If you have a good week at school, this is what's waiting for you. If you have a good 2 weeks at school, this is what's waiting for you. On the flip side, if you had a bad day at school, this is what's waiting for you. So we want your son to be motivated to earn the reward, and we want him to be motivated to not earn the consequence.
Okay.
And because he's so young, I recommend for young children that you get a calendar. A calendar where every day before he goes to bed, you review his performance at home and his performance at school. 2 different color markers. If he had a good day, he get a smiley face. If he had a bad day, he get a sad face. You might have red for school, blue for home. And if he gets more smileys than sad faces by the end of the week, that's how he gets his reward. The reason calendars are useful and sometimes necessary is because children cannot monitor their own behavior as well as adults can. So by putting it on the calendar, you remind him, Monday you didn't have a good day. Tuesday you didn't have a good day. Today is Wednesday. In order for this to be a good week, you got to do good Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Calendars help young children keep track of their behavior.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Is there another question on the call this morning?
I have a question.
Yes, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My question is, my son, he's 3 years old. He turned 3 in September. It was 2 years, 11 months. I had him tested for speech language disorder. He qualified only in the area. Well, first he didn't qualify. They told me that he could read whenever he knows how to read. He knows all his letters.
Slow down, lady. Slow down, baby. Slow down, slow down. You're going too fast. Slow down just a little bit.
He's very intelligent. He knows all his letters. He can read up to 42 words. I think he's 3 years old. He can count. So they told me that pulled his score up, so that he did not qualify because he could do those things. And a lot of times he was reading the words on the test and not necessarily listening to what she was saying. So that pulled his score up. But I thought for he did qualify.
Slow down, sweetie. Slow down, slow down. You're going so fast. Slow down. Talk a little slower. Go ahead.
He qualified only for expressive language. And so he's now in a preschool program. He has an EIP for expressive language only, and I think OT for his handwriting. But he's only 3. My issue is that his teacher does not know how to teach him, and she keeps asking me for interventions to assist him. I am an educator, but my degree is in secondary education and not early education, so I told her to create a reward system, which she did, but she said she's still unable to focus. And she keeps telling me to take him to the doctor for attention. It's very similar to your previous question, but my issue is my son is only 3 years old, and he turned 3 in September. I don't know what else to do, where to go from here on how to tell her how to teach my son, because she agrees he is academically advanced, and some of the things that she's teaching him, he already knows, like alphabet, like letters and things like that. He already knows that stuff. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell her. What should I tell her how to teach my son? She keeps telling me he won't focus.
Well, first of all, you as the parent should not have to tell a teacher how to teach your son. So I'm assuming this is preschool, right?
This is preschool.
Okay. Well, number one, it might be time to have a conversation with the preschool director. Maybe your child needs another preschool teacher. Maybe he needs another preschool period. But I'm not comfortable with you having to tell the teacher how to teach your son. That don't sit well with me. She shouldn't be there if she has to be told by the parent how to educate the child. Now, in your opinion, what is the big issue? What is the big issue she's having with him?
Focusing. She said he won't focus. He looks around sometimes when she asks him to do something.
He's 3 years
He'll
old.
start laughing.
He's 3. 3-year-old kids ain't going to focus unless you're doing something to keep their attention. I mean, he's 3. He's 3. So my question for her, is she including enough of entertaining, stimulating, learning activities in her daily regimen? 3-year-old kids, you have to make sure that it is entertaining. It has to be stimulating. It has to make use of their body. You know, they got to clap and count with their fingers and, you know, work together. I would like to know, what is she doing to keep their attention? You're not going to get a 3-year-old's attention unless you're trying to get it. He's not in the 5th grade. It sounds like she's expecting him to show up with his hands folded. And this is the problem I have with all these teachers. Here we go again. Females teaching boys. And I'm not against females teaching boys. Most teachers are women. They do a good job. I'm not against. But we have a very big problem because females want boys to act like girls. Boys are not girls. The number one problem in public education is that women are teaching men and they expect them to behave like girls. And nothing is being done about this, especially when it comes to black boys, because nobody gives a damn about black boys. So what? But that's the issue that your son is having. I would like to know, what is she doing to keep these children's attention?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still here.
She does a lot of like identifying letters. Like he'll point to the letters, but he's only gonna do so much. Like she told me that whenever he does do the work, he does it accurately because he already knew everything coming into preschool when he was 2 and a half. He could read words, so she pretty much feel for that. Like whenever they're doing, and she said y'all have someone work with him 101. She said he knows the information, but he won't focus to do it all the time.
But then what? Remember now, all behavior is a function of the context and the consequences. So my question to her would be, you know, what are you doing in the class? What are the rewards? How are you motivating these kids? They're 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're 3 years old. So she has to do a better job of keeping their attention. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like she's not a good teacher. Is she a first-year teacher?
No, she's not. My issue too is that the school he attends is 90% white. My son is the only African American child in his class, and one of the only ones in the school. So I'm not sure. And his teacher, she appears like she may be, like she's black. I think she is black or biracial or something. So, and I thought that would probably be the best option because I did hate to pick her to be his preschool teacher. So I'm afraid that if he moves somewhere else, it may actually get worse.
Got you. I think it's time to move him to another class or another program. I really do, because it sounds like your son isn't learning at all in there. 3? I mean, you don't know what to do with 3-year-olds? I mean, that's crazy. I've never heard that. So, I mean, I think you got to start. I think you have to start evaluating that program for whether it's the best place for your son.
And I have a second question also. I am a school counselor, and my school focuses puts a lot of emphasis on the culture of poverty, which to me it sounds like they're stereotyping.
They are.
My school is.
They are.
Mine is a Title I school, but the only issue
Um, I mean, if you were to go to Google Scholar, and you type in culture of poverty, you'll get a lot of stuff there. It's out there, a lot of stuff to refute that. Me personally, having been in this field almost 20 years, I don't really look to the research because I don't need it. I have so much firsthand experience that I don't need to see what white folks have to say about black reality. That's just me. But I do understand the need to sometimes, back up your premise with their documentation. So, but I would go to Google Scholar, and type in cultural poverty. Also, any of the major city libraries. They also have peer-reviewed journal articles, search engines. If you have access to any of those, what's the one we used in my doctoral program? There's so many different ones, but if you can get to any peer-reviewed journal online databases, you'll find all that you want, for that. Also, the National Association of Black School Educators, that can also be a resource for you to get those type of articles.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Dr. Umar.
Yes, ma'am. Where you calling from?
I'm sorry. My name is Abby. I'm calling from Fort Lauderdale, and I know this is only supposed to go until 8, but I have a question.
Go ahead.
Would it be okay?
Sure.
Okay. I'm a single mother. I have one daughter. She's 7 years old. And because she's an only child and she doesn't get a lot of interaction with other girls, because most of my friends and my cousins and things like that have boy children. And, she plays with them. She gets along with them. But I wanted her to get female interaction. And so there is a Girl Scout troop in my area at my mother's church. And she's been in it for a few months now. She seems to like it, but it is predominantly white. And I like what they teach the children. They teach the girls community service. They teach them sisterhood. They teach them, different things. And I like that aspect of it. But I would rather her get that in the, context of other young Black girls. But the problem is in my area, looking for different organizations, I have not been able to find any. So I just kind of wanted to get your take, I guess, on, Black children being involved in these predominantly white organizations.
I'm not a big fan of it, but if it's the only thing we can do for now, we may have to. Now, where do you live again?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
You are in Florida.
Yes.
I want you to send me a text message, 215-989-9858. I know some folks in Florida, and I'm going to ask around to see if any of them have contacts for any type of social organizations for Black girls. And I'm sure it got to be something down there. So make sure you send me a text. Again, okay. I know some folks, and I'm going to see if I can get you tied in somewhere.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
I have a question, Umar.
Yes, where are you calling from?
I have a daughter. She's 9 years old. She's autistic.
Where are you calling from? Where are you calling from?
I'm from Garland, Texas.
Garland, Texas. Go ahead.
Yes. She's autistic, and she also was labeled autistic with ADHD. She's left-handed, which is weird, So she's very kind of clumsy. The biggest issue that I have with her is that she's in like a predominantly white teacher school. All the teachers are white, and she's a very intelligent kid. She can draw really good, but for some reason lately she has been sleeping throughout the entire school day. But she still gets the honor roll, and I don't know how she's getting the honor roll. She's like sleeping throughout the entire day at school, but she's still getting the honor roll, and I'm like trying to figure out how are they like just pushing her through. I mean, but she's a very intelligent kid. She's very smart. She plays this thing called Roblox. I'm not sure if any of the parents on here. She's been exhausted by playing like video games, Roblox, Xbox, and computer games. And I try to get her off of it, but I guess a part of the autistic thing is to be obsessed with stuff. What she's become obsessed with is like playing on video games, like obsessively. And then when you actually try to bring her off of it, she like almost has a breakdown, like a what they call like a meltdown in autistic, you know. So I'm trying to figure out. I don't know what exactly to do, you know, because I don't want to whoop her, because I don't want to like to become like that whooping parent that's like whooping on her. And all my friends are like, well, you need to like whoop her, you need to do something.
Well, she's autistic though. She has autism, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's why we whipping an autistic kid for being autistic?
I get a lot of pressure on the outside of people.
You know, you don't do that. No, that's child abuse. You don't beat an autistic kid for being autistic.
And I'm not like as I don't know. I was getting like a lot of pressure. I was like, I'm not doing the right thing as a mother for her. And what happens is people will see her, they don't think that she's autistic because she don't seem autistic.
Okay. And what is the behavior? What is the behavior again that they don't like? What is the behavior again?
Well, what she'll do is you have to ask her over and over again to do stuff.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
Like, okay. And she's really into like computers. So
no, give me an example. Give me an example. A real life example where she has to be asked over and over to do something. Give me an example.
If I tell her to go clean up her room, she'll go in there, clean up her room a little bit, and then she'll go and like get on the computer. And then I'm like, okay, let's go back into your room and clean up your room. And she'll clean her room a little bit, and go back on the computer or the Xbox or whatever. And then, or if she's not on the Xbox, she'll find something else to do, whether she's fooling around or find something like she'll get fascinated with something, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, okay, go back into your room. So I have to repeat over and over again, go back to your room and do this. Go back into your room and do this. And then other people will say, well, she don't do that when she's over here. And then my aunt, see, other people, I get a lot of pressure on me because they say, well, she doesn't do that when I have her. She does fine. But when she's with me, I have to repeat. But when she's with other people, they say it once and she doesn't.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what.
Well, first of all, you got to stop listening to what everybody else thinks. It sounds like you're worrying too much about what everybody else thinks. It's your child. I mean, yes, you should consider other people's opinions, but the final decision is yours. It's your child. So I think you're worrying too much about what other people think. She's not their child. That's number one. Number two, I do think that you need to be more consistent with her, though. Beating is not the answer, though. You just have to be consistent with the consequences. You know, what are going to be the consequences when she don't do what she's supposed to do? I think you do need to administer consequences. Being autistic doesn't preclude you from being responsible for your behavior. So I do understand that point, but that should be based on what you feel is appropriate, not everybody else. How old is she?
She's 9.
She's still kind of young, but she is old enough where she needs to start being held responsible for her behavior. You know, so I wouldn't panic. You know, I wouldn't panic on this. I would start paying attention. The biggest thing I go through right now is that people call CPS on me. They call for what? For what? What's the complaint?
Because they won't find a reason, like whatever it is. I mean, she doesn't like, she might like not wipe her behind the right way, whatever. And I actually like sit down with her and make her, but they will call CPS on me. It's like I have like a lot of people that like pretty much think that they can raise her better than I can, and I have a hard time as a mother because people always feel like, well, I'm not doing it the best way for her.
But how do you feel? You know, it ultimately comes down to you. Like, how do you feel?
I'm doing the best I can. You know, I mean, nobody like knows how to raise an autistic kid, and she's like both autistic and ADHD. She's combined. And then I have went through neurologists, I've went through behavior therapists, I've done everything I could. So it's not like I'm just sitting here. It's very difficult, you know. I've been very difficult, you know.
Right. Well,
And right now, she's obsessed with like computers and Roblox, and she doesn't want to get off the computer. And I don't know whether to support her in the computer thing and say, go ahead, well, if that's your thing, you know, should I just be supportive and just let her be in computer? She gets on like YouTube. She pretty much hacks Roblox. She knows how to like do Roblox to the point where she actually like takes down codes, and she's figured out the whole thing like more deeply than anybody else could ever imagine. Roblox could ever go. I mean, I see the talent in what she's doing, but at the same time, so I don't know if I should like interrupt it and say, you know, no, you know, or should I just continue to like say, okay, you know, she's actually doing computer stuff. Like, that's actually a good thing. I don't know what to say, because I'm a software engineer. So if she's in the computers, I'm in the computers. That's like kind of similar. So I don't know. I don't really know exactly if I'm like, if I should like cut her off on that, or she might not be as athletic or whatever it is, but she might be really into computers. Should I support her in that? I don't really know.
okay. I think and you say where are you based at again, sis?
Garland, Texas.
You're down in Texas.
One question I have. It's not a question I have. It's like I'm going through a line.
Yeah, I think we got to do a one-on-one. So shoot me a text, and we can set that up. We got to do a one-on-one probably, and I would also like to see your child's. Is she a special ed student for autism?
No, she's in regular classes. She has actually on AP honor roll right now.
Okay, so that's good. That's
they're
good.
always saying that they're always complaining about her all the time. They put her on honor roll, but they're complaining the whole time she's in class that she's doing this, doing that, but then she's on honor roll. I'm like, how is she on honor roll? You guys complain about her every day. It's very confusing. And she can draw really good, and she has like a lot of talent.
Okay.
I'm really very.
Yeah, what we'll do a one-on-one, because you're not being very specific with what she's doing, so it's hard for me to really say because we're not being specific enough about what's going on at home or in the class. But send me a text message, and we'll do a one-on-one. Do you have my number?
What is it?
215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. But I don't think the situation is as bad as it may seem, because so far I haven't heard anything to really give me cause for concern other than the fact the child is autistic. I mean, she's on honor roll. She does her work, so I don't know. But we'll talk more about this.
958.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Umar?
Yes, sir. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm calling about my nephew, man. My mama had him evaluated a couple of years ago because his mom had passed away, you know, and we were all kind of displaced at that time during the situation. So,
You're going in and out, bro. Your phone going in and out.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. My question to you would be, what would you,
You went out again. You going in and out. That phone just started doing that.
okay. Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Hello?
Yes. I can hear you now.
Okay. My question is, what advice can you give me to ensure me, because being as though I'm just an uncle, I don't think I have a lot of power to change the order of what's going on with him being ADHD, and I don't really want him to remain on this particular medication. I want to get him off of that, and like you said, he has a male figure in his life. He has me, so I know exactly what it is. It's just like you say, laziness, and just not wanting to, having to, act like the people hell, and so what advice can you give me to assure me that, help him get out of this or get off of this medication or get out, where he was being special aid his whole life.
Okay, but you said this is your nephew, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're not the legal guardian. Who is the legal guardian? The parents or the grandparents?
Yeah, my mom is the legal guardian.
Then you have to convince her to take him off the meds because the decision is hers. And if she wants to take him off the meds, what she needs to do is get a psychiatrist. She needs to be strategic about this. She just can't stop doing it because they'll take him from her, medical neglect. So she has to get a psychiatrist and tell the psychiatrist she wants to start weaning him off that meds, and the psychiatrist will agree, and the psychiatrist will, start lowering the dosage to ultimately taking him off the meds. But she needs a letter from that psychiatrist stating that he's working with her to remove the child off the meds in case the school tries to make a complaint against her with Child Protective Services. But it can be done. It's not difficult. It happens all the time. But you have to convince her that that's what's in his best interest. And it is, because the side effects of those medications are very dangerous. The side effects from those medications are very, very dangerous. So we don't want him on those meds at all. Kill brain cells, mess with organ function, sexual problems, impotence, infertility, diabetes, tic disorders, suicidal thoughts, nightmares. I mean, all kinds of problems. So we want him off the meds, but you got to convince her. I mean, you might even have to have her call into the call or read my book, one or the other or both. But your work is to get her.
I'm trying to get your book. I don't know how to get it.
Where you based at again?
Your book?
Where are you based at?
I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay, I got you. New Orleans. I may be coming there for Black History Month next month, February. So if I come, I'll have them with me. Yeah. If not, you can also text me and I can get it. Go ahead.
What you say?
No, I said you can also text me and I can get it to you if I don't end up coming to New Orleans next month.
Okay. One more thing, Mr. Dr. Umar. They decided to say that he's not they're not giving my mama the money for my nephew, but in Portland, it's like they saying he's not. He's no longer ADHD, but but all they did was take the money back. They're not taking him off the medicine. So isn't that sort of like illegal? Why? How can they determine when he's not, disabled anymore? When how are they able to do that? That doesn't make sense to me.
You're talking about the school? Who is they? The school?
Well, whoever, the people that evaluated him and
right, but we got to know who.
Administered to him.
Right, but who? Are we talking about the school, the hospital, the clinic? We got to know who.
The clinic, whoever was, my mom was getting this money from. I think it's the clinic, but they decided to way, but he's still ADHD. Still in.
Well, the money is different. The money is Social Security. Is that you? Who? Is that you with all the noise in the background?
No, that's not me.
Please mute your phones. Please mute your phones, family. Somebody got all this noise coming on my call. They washing dishes. Whoever washing dishes, I need you to mute your phone. Who's ever washing dishes, can you please mute your phone? I think they did it. But the money, no, they didn't do it. They washing dishes, and we hear all that. Black folks. But the money is Social Security income. The money is Social Security income, and they can determine that the child no longer qualifies for the money because the money is based on degree of impairment. You get the money to help you provide for a person who has limited ability to provide for themselves. So if they determine that although he has ADHD or whatever, that he's not impaired enough to no longer qualify for the money, they can do that. In fact, I can tell you that they're starting to slow down, and ultimately they're going to stop giving parents money for ADHD because everybody knows ADHD is a joke. And so the government is contradicting its own self by saying on the one hand, ADHD exists, but on the other hand, okay, we're no longer going to give out Social Security money for ADHD because these kids are not really impaired. Well, if they're not really impaired, then the ADHD don't exist. It is a contradiction, and that's what you're speaking to. But parents need to understand that the money is not automatic. You don't automatically get money because your child has a disability. The money is based on degree of impairment. There must be an impairment that necessitates the funds because this parent is going to have to spend more to take care of this particular child. All right.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
All right. Thank you.
Again, how do I get your book? What I do?
Again, I might be coming to New Orleans next month. If I come to New Orleans, all you got to do is come to the event and get the book. Or you could text me and I can send you a link to pay for the book and I can mail it to you.
All right, thanks.
All right, brother. How you doing, sister? Yes, ma'am. And this will be my last question for the morning. So, okay, you'll be my last one then. Her and you, the two sisters, and that'll be it. Okay, where you calling from, good sister?
Dr. Umar, I'm calling from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
I know it's different Durham today. I'm going to have to miss this one. I have two questions. I have a 2-year-old grandson, and he needs to go in daycare. Is there any specific daycare that he should go in that he's going to get the correct curriculum? And I was looking at co-op homeschooling because my daughter don't have the time to do that. She's working 2 jobs in one school. So what would be your suggestions in that?
Well, I think the co-op homeschool piece is a very good idea. If you could find other parents who are serious about, doing the homeschool piece, I think that's one way. As far as the daycares, I'm not too familiar with the daycare culture in Charlotte, so I couldn't give a definitive recommendation on that level. I do know some folks in Charlotte though, so if you shoot me a text message, I can ask around and see if anybody have any ideas on that. Just shoot me a text. But the co-op homeschool piece, the homeschool network piece is definitely a good idea.
Okay. All right. 215-989-9858.
Yes.
All right. My name is Vonette. I will be shooting that text to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, love. Thank you. Okay. And
Good morning, Doctor. This is Jerry Walker calling from St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri. Yes, ma'am. Don't talk too fast now so I can hear you. Okay, go right ahead.
We attend Clayton School District, Glen Ridge Elementary to be specific. And I've been dealing with the pushback for him to be a part of special ed. Now, we had a meeting right before school was out for the holiday break. And I was adamant about him not being detained. They use the same buzzwords constantly whenever we use. They never have anything positive to say. He's
so frustrated. He's always so angry. Every time I talk, or he can't stay focused, so on and so forth. And I was listening to you speak or because it was over the past weekend, and you were saying, well, you confirmed that I thought he doesn't respect her and their type of structure, and he's not interested. So he sits apart from everyone else in class. If he gets frustrated with reading or the assignment in front of him, he may break a pencil or something, or that sort of throw something, he kick the chair because he's so frustrated with what's going on. Nobody talks to Bubba Whisper in the school. In the morning they're playing, soft jazz. That's what he listens to go to sleep. So I'm sure that's kind of confusing as well. I've been keeping documentation since I
Speak a little louder, Queen. Your voice is low, and so it's kind of hard for me to follow you. I don't know if you're far from the phone. Okay, there you go. You're clear now.
In the academic folder here about the ongoings, especially the meeting, and I don't have the community support as to have an advocate go with me. His father is in his life. We do not reside together, but he doesn't like to go to the meetings, and I think that's a cop out. But he doesn't want to face them. But then that leaves me to myself to face them. We're having another meeting. So my question is, we're having another meeting, and I just want to be more prepared because I know they're going to push again for him to see their psychiatrist, which is a Title 414 kickback for them, and they're going to recommend that he repeats the first grade. Israel is a very intelligent young man. I don't understand what happens once he goes through the school doors and doesn't want to sit still, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so
and also I need the black psychiatrist and for a phone number contact that you have.
Okay, so let me review this. He's in first grade.
Yes.
He's not in special ed, correct?
No, he's not.
They want him to be?
No, I do not.
No, do they want him to be, the school?
Yes.
Why?
The second week that the second week that he was there, they recommended that he see the psychiatrist. They say that he's not focused. He doesn't get it. They haven't been able to gauge his academic progress or where he is academically, so they've modified his work. And meaning, I really don't know exactly what it means. Right now, he does talk to text on the computer versus writing. And in the meeting, I said, if you're going to do that to alleviate the stress that he supposedly has when it comes to writing, split it. Don't just do computer talk because he needs to know the writing. He hasn't picked up on phonetics either, unless we're drilling. So when he sounds things out, words out like team, he goes, he makes the actual sound versus blending the words together.
Does he need, he might need a speech and language eval, possibly. Do you think he needs that or no?
I'm not sure. What would be an indication of that?
If he got speech problems, does he have problem articulating or understanding? Does he have trouble understanding what he hears, or do he have trouble articulating himself when he speaks?
Not really. No.
Okay. Okay.
Clearly understands just fine.
Okay. Well, he's too young for an evaluation. He's too young. He's in first grade, so when they say that he has trouble focusing or whatnot, I don't understand what they're talking about, because a first grader is going to have some trouble focusing. Like, I'm not hearing a clear problem that will require an evaluation for a child that young. Now, whoever washing the dishes, I need you to mute your phone. You back on my line and interrupting my call. Please mute your phone. But my question to you is, why do they have to give him this special? Why does he have to do his stuff on the computer, though? I'm not understanding that.
Neither am I, because when it comes to to, when they first walk in the classroom, once they've, put everything away, they go straight to what's called free time, and they can write, draw, do like a journal type thing, get on the computer, and she said that he's more comfortable working on the computer. So they're really modifying, dialing back on his academics.
And they can't do that. They cannot do that unless he's in special ed. They cannot modify the instruction unless he is in special ed. And that is the complaint that you need to make towards them. But I'm still not clear on why they're doing this, though. Why are they doing it? You said that they said he got trouble focusing, but every first grader got trouble focusing. So that's not clear enough for me. Like,
and I believe it's almost a carbon copy of and they just changed the names, but they said his behavior concerns, inability to attend to learning, blurts out, constantly moves, touching things and students, out of his seat, laying on the rug, whole group time, making noises, acting out, defiant tantrums, shoe throwing, inappropriate language, growling at teachers. That's behavioral. Academic concerns due to behavior. Currently performing at mid-kindergarten level 1 year behind in reading and math skills. Is not attending to whole group and one-on-one instructions beyond 6 to 8 minutes. She says he can't focus more than 6 to 8 minutes.
No first grader can focus more than 6 to 8 minutes. That's regular. Like, they're describing a regular kid. What kind of school is this? Is this a predominantly black student school?
In St. Louis, this is the #1 public school in St. Louis. It's I hate to say this, but it's like the upper echelon of public schools. We are in the Normandy School District, and Normandy and Riverview are unaccredited. And so they have a transfer program, and I put both my sons in the transfer program. So we drive over to Clayton, maybe about 20 minutes away from where we reside, for him to attend school. Wonderful school, wonderful curriculum. It's just this whole infiltrated white supremacy. We're not afraid to show it anymore, and we're going to be more aggressive with it.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, first, the students are mostly black?
No, sir. My son and my goddaughter are the only 2 black children in his classroom. It's predominantly Jewish and Chinese.
It's predominantly Jewish and Chinese. I think I know what the problem is. They don't want him there. That's why they don't want him there.
They don't.
Chinese and Jewish. You might gotta.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you go fight with him if you want him to be there, but I don't know if he's in the right place. Chinese and Jews, they don't like black folks. So,
not at all.
I don't think he's in the right place. I think we got to move him to another school, and that's a shame. But that's what it sounds like.
I'm considering my homeschooling co-op as well as the K-12. I am a private chef and caterer, so my hours are more conducive to being able to handle that, and I'm immediately so dedicated.
Got you. The other thing you could do too, instead of moving them out, you could, and it would be better if you get the other parents on board with, well, it's only 2 of you in that class, but I would try to get in contact with all the black parents in that school. And maybe you guys want to get together and file a class. Listen, hold on. Maybe you guys want to come together and file a class action complaint against that school with the United States Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. That's another way. In other words, y'all might want to put up a fight before y'all leave. United States Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, systematic discrimination at that school against black children. That's another way to go. But go ahead.
They sent a letter home when he first started. They got all the black teachers together, and the summation of the letter is basically just the first line. The first line read that it is statistically shown, nationally statistically shown that African American students are performing below their peers, and so we want to come together and talk about this. And I didn't go to the meeting. I kept trying to calm myself down before I could go, but I knew that I'd be too elated to attend. But they're not putting it in context. Most of the black children that are attending this school are coming from districts like Normandy, where the teachers are by 85% of the time disciplinarians and authoritarians. So they don't really have time to teach the kids who learn different, who want to learn. So it's completely out of context. Now there are some black students at this school who are doing well, assimilating and so on and so forth. But for the most part, the black boys or in special ed, or they're always with some type of assistant or intern or something along those lines. Especially my son.
Got you.
Okay, so fight that.
Yeah, I think it's time again for you to meet with the other parents and potentially do a letter to the United States Department of Education, OCR, discrimination against your children. Y'all might want to do that, but you're going to need other parents. Can't do it alone. You could do it alone, but it'll be more effective if you had other parents on board.
May I give the contact information for the African American Psychiatric?
Psychological. It's the Association of Black Psychologists. Association of Black Psychologists. The number is 301-449-3082. 301-449-3082. Also, info@abpsi.org. info@abpsi.org. A for association, B for black, P for psychology, S for strong, I as an individual. info@abpsi.org.
August 21st, 2018.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we're working on.
That's the school. That is the school. Can't wait to come in again. Sir, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, love.
Doing what you're doing. I love you with all my heart. How do you love someone who's on the net in passing? I love you, sir.
Thank you so much, baby. I love you too.
Take care.
Take care now. All right. That's going to do it for the parent call today, so I can start making preparations for tonight's event in Durham. I want to thank everyone for calling in and showing love. I saw a comment on here that I just want to respond to. Sister Casey. Sister Casey, you said, unfortunately, many of the diagnoses out there aren't exclusive to just one race. I will always remain dedicated to fighting to ensure that all kids receive a free and appropriate public education. Well, Casey, I don't know if you're black or not, but you're right. The diagnoses are out there for all kids, just like prison is out there for all people. But we know that black people are deliberately, systematically, unjustly targeted by the criminal and justice system. And black kids are also deliberately, unjustly, indiscriminately targeted for special ed. Now, I'm not fighting for all kids. I'm fighting for black kids. And the reason I'm fighting for black kids is because our people never get anyone's undivided attention. There's no organization that gives black people undivided attention. There's no laws that give black people undivided attention. There's no leaders that give black people undivided attention. Okay? My people deserve the same tender loving care as everyone else. My people deserve the same time, the same attention, the same commitment, okay, as everyone else. So I'm not fighting for everybody. I am unapologetically fighting for black people. If you have a problem with that, stay your ass off my page, okay? For you little trolling Negroes, if you don't like who I am or what I stand for, why are you on my page? You know why you on my page? Because you in love with me too. Problem is you can't admit it. Jealousy is nothing more than positive admiration. Why would you sit on my page for 3 hours and you don't agree with me? It's because you actually do agree with me. In fact, you probably wish you were me, but you can't be, okay? So stay your ass off my page because I'm going to block you anyway, okay? All right? That's all that's going to happen, all right? So stop with this "we are the world, hands across America" colorblind nonsense. That's what got us in the situation we in now. That's what Obama did to your ass. Obama multiculturalized your ass out of being relevant anymore in American politics, and y'all let him do it. So I don't want to hear it, okay? I'm not multicultural, okay? I am for black people, and I am only for black people, and I am always only going to be for black people until